Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. Here to do excuse me, pardon me. I'm here to do yet another video. Here to do yet another video on our year in review series. We do tons of these. You know, we did 1989, we did 1988, we did 1990, we did 1992, we did 1993, we did 1994, we did 1995, we did 1996, 1997, 1998 WCW, and 1998 WWF Part 1. So here we are with 1998 WWF Part 2. Where we left off, Stone Cold Steve Austin had just won the WWF Championship. It was at WrestleMania. It was a big fanfare. It was in Boston, WrestleMania 14. A big fanfare. Mike Tyson coming in a little while after his suspension in 1997, coming back to the ring, but not to the boxing ring, to the wrestling ring. Mike Tyson at that time was a huge media celebrity. Not only had he come back and he had been undefeated basically, but he had the Evander Holyfield controversy, and prior to that, prior to his jail sentence in the early 90s, he had been the most dominant boxing celebrity since Muhammad Ali, and many would say. And here he is in the World Wrestling Federation, ready to make an impact. He shows up at the Royal Rumble. He celebrates with the Royal Rumble winner, who is Stone Cold Steve Austin. The next night on Raw, Austin confronts him. They have their melee. He says he wants a piece of Mike Tyson's ass, and if Tyson doesn't understand it, he always got a little bit of sign language, so here's to you. To Tyson. Tyson shoves him, and the WWF officials try to break them apart, and Jim Ross is in the background screaming, "Austin wants Tyson! Tyson wants Austin!" Then, the wheels in our head start turning. Maybe Austin will forsake the WWF Championship match against Shawn Michaels and go on to face Mike Tyson at WrestleMania 14 in Boston. No, that doesn't happen. The Nevada State Athletic Commission refused to have Mike Tyson participate in any match, whether it would be an exhibition match like the WWF or a boxing match, because of what he had done. So they make him the special enforcer. During that time that he's a special enforcer for a match with Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold. During that time that he's a special enforcer, DX confronts him. Shawn Michaels confronts him. He's in the WWF Attitude shirt. They've now switched the logos. We're full swing into the WWF Attitude Era. Mike Tyson, he calls Mike Tyson boy, delivers a semi-racist promo, and then rips the Attitude Era shirt off Mike Tyson, revealing a DX shirt. Tyson goes into WrestleMania 14 as the heel, the newest member of D-Generation X. So the deck is stacked against Stone Cold Steve Austin. But anyway, they have the match. It's a semi-decent match. I mean, it's Shawn Michaels, the greatest worker of the 1990s, going against Stone Cold Steve Austin, who he himself was previously a good worker, especially in his WCW days. But here he is injured. His neck got injured at SummerSlam 97 in the match against Owen Hart. And Shawn Michaels, his back got injured in the casket match at Royal Rumble against The Undertaker. He didn't even there was a No Way Out match on the New Age Outlaws and DX taking on Stone Cold's team. And Michaels was unable to make that. Savio Vega had to fill in for him. So Michaels is injured. And some are saying that Michaels won't even be wanting to do the job and put Austin over, because Austin's era is about to begin. Well, Undertaker takes care of that. Undertaker's on the card that night taking on his brother Kane. But while he's in the back, he's taping up his fist, ready to police this shit, ready to say, listen, if Shawn Michaels doesn't want to do business for Austin tonight, I'm ready to do business in real life on Shawn Michaels. Anyway, Michaels does it. It's a semi decent match. Um, Austin hits the Stone Cold. He says maybe I should have did the Fat Man Scoop video at night. Yeah, at least I took a little nap afterwards. School is really getting to me, but I'm trying to do these videos, faithfully to the people that are my subscribers. I'll redo the Fat Man Scoop video tomorrow. It was not up to par. It was not something I liked. But anyway, uh, Austin hits the Stone Cold Stunner, uh, knocks Shawn Michaels out. But now the referee, the normal referee, he's out, and Tyson's on the outside. He's the enforcer. He's a DX member. Will he be objective? Will he make the right count? He does. Michaels gets up. He yells at Tyson, "You're supposed to be with me, Mike. You're supposed to be with me." Pointing his finger at Tyson. He takes a shot at Tyson. Tyson blocks it. Tyson then knocks the shit out of Shawn Michaels. Kayfabe, of course. And that's the end of Shawn Michaels. And you hear Jim Ross on the mic, "The Austin era has begun." And it had. And we would not see Shawn Michaels until on TV until later in the year in 1999. And we would not see him in the ring again until 2002. What happens the next night? Triple H comes out. Triple H won his match against Owen Hart for the European Championship at WrestleMania. He comes out. He says, "You dropped the ball. I asked you a million times. Was he with us? Was he locked in? Is he a part of us?" Referring to Mike Tyson. And, Shawn Michaels said, "Yeah, he is. He's a part of us. He's locked in." But obviously he wasn't. So they basically kick Shawn Michaels out of DX, and they reveal that they're going to form that night on Raw the DX Army, new version of DX. He says, and Triple H says, when you're starting an army, when you're looking for backup, you look to your blood. You look to the Click. Points to the door, and out comes Sean Waltman, formerly the 1-2-3 Kid. We talked about him in other videos. We talked about when he debuted in '93 that he was a jobber, and I told my stepdad, jobbers never win. It wasn't possible that he could beat Razor Ramon. He beats Razor Ramon. We talked about the classic match he had with Bret Hart on Raw in 1994 that people still, July of 1994, that people still talk about to this day. We talked about him turning heel. He was the referee and he took the bribe in the Sid versus Razor Ramon match on Raw. And then we talked about his jump to WCW as part of the NWO, the sixth member of the NWO, not counting Ted DiBiase himself. We talked about last 1998 video in the WCW 1998 video. WCW 1997 video where he and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall teamed up to take on Roddy Piper, Kevin Green, and Ric Flair. And how they didn't want him. They wanted Hogan, but Hall and Nash pushed for him because he was the workhorse of the team. So, and also how he got to the finals of the semifinals of King of the Ring 1994. And on the 1 year anniversary of Raw, he won the WWF Tag Team Championships for the Quebecers, teaming with Marty Jannetty. And likewise, at the Royal Rumble 1995, he won it with Bob Holly. So those were all his accolades, and he had the only good match in Sold Out 97, him versus Eddie Guerrero. So those were the only good highlights of Sean Waltman, a.k.a. X-Pac, a.k.a. The Kid, a.k.a. The Lightning Kid, a.k.a. Six, had in his career. But here he is 1998, he's back in the WWF. They don't know what to call him, so they just call him the Kid throughout the whole night. But his name will be X-Pac. It'll be a combination of Tupac Shakur, who passed away not so long before this, like 2 years before this in '96, and X-Pac. Because what happened was his name was Six in WCW, but they a nickname for him, we'll call him Six Pac, right? So when he went back to WWE, they're like, okay, well, he's in DX, so just call him X Pac. And that name kind of stuck, X Pac. Till to this day, there's no more NWO, there's no more DX, and Tupac has been dead for many years now, and people still call him X Pac. Some people shorten it to Pac. Obviously, Tupac wasn't the first Tupac. There was a Tupac Amaru, an Incan chief who fought against the Spaniards, during the colonial period in Peru, which is where Tupac LaShagne Paris Crooks mother got his name, adding, of course, the Arabic last name of Shakur. But anyway, he says, you look to your blood, you look to the clique, and that's what happens. X-Pac comes out, he says, basically accuses Hulk Hogan of being Barrett Bischoff, the head of WCW, of being a brown noser. He says, your head is so far up Hulk Hogan's ass, you can tell what he had for breakfast. And if Scott Hall and Kevin Nash weren't being held hostage by World Championship Wrestling, they'd be right here too, Eric Bischoff. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It was a real good work shoot promo by Waltman, and now you have the DX Army. Later that night, the New Age Outlaws, who had already been teaming with DX in several matches, finally become official members of DX after their cage match with Cactus Jack and Terry Funk. You recall at WrestleMania they had the match, Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, in a dumpster match. Well, this is no dumpster match, this is a regular cage match. And this leads to a transformation of Cactus Jack. He begins to feel like the fans don't appreciate him as a babyface, as Cactus Jack. He's been performing as Cactus Jack in the WWF since late 1997 when he had the match with Triple H. Before that, he was Dude Love. Before that, he was, of course, Mankind. But, he feels like unappreciated. He feels unloved. So while this is going on, Vince McMahon is trying to mold the new champion, Stone Cold Steve Austin, into what he wants him to be, telling him that other past champions that the WWE has had, the Bruno Sammartinos, the Bob Backlunds, the Pedro Moraleses. He doesn't mention Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan, obviously, at that time, with a rival promotion. But those champions were corporate champions. Those champions conformed to what the WWF wanted from a champion. So, being as though they did that and Austin did this, they premiere a new belt, they get rid of Winged Eagle belt, and they premiere the Attitude Era belt, which is different and unique, but I'm a sentimental person. I prefer the Winged Eagle. Austin says no for the first 2 weeks, and then later comes out in the suit, almost fools McMahon, punches him in the nuts, and still says no. So finally, McMahon has hatched a plan. He has decided to convince Mick Foley, the former tag team partner under the Dude Love gimmick, in July of 1997, after Shawn Michaels threw a titty attack and left the WWE and threatened to go to WCW and even appeared on wrestling magazines holding up the NWO symbol, while being one half of the tag team champions with Stone Cold Steve Austin. At that same time, Jim Ross was having his sit-down interview with Mankind, and Mankind told us about the character that he was as a teenager that was kind of like Shawn Michaels' Dude Love. So what do? to defend the tag team championships. They bring back Dude Love and Stone Cold Steve Austin become a tag team. Now, that was in '97. Now here in '98, of course, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, he's feeling highly disgruntled. So Vince McMahon convinces him that he could beat Stone Cold Steve Austin and he could become the WWF champion. He could defeat his former tag team partner, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So throughout the year, Vince McMahon is using Dude Love in order to capture the WWF championship and make the WWF image of the WWF champion corporate once again. So we're at Unforgiven. What else is going on? The Nation of Domination is having tremendous issues as well. Ken Shamrock and The Rock at WrestleMania 14, an amazing match. The Rock really coming into his own since joining the Nation in late 1997. And abandoning the Rocky Maivia character. But he's starting to feel like he should be the leader of the Nation. And that Farouk is not up to par because Farouk doesn't have any championships. Farouk doesn't have the IC championship the way that The Rock does. Farouk is never achieved any of those status. So it kind of, in my opinion, mimics. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it was unintentional. It kind of, in my mind, mimics the actual conflicts that were going on within the actual nation, the Nation of Islam, between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? Whereas the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started the nation. You know what I mean? He didn't start the nation, but he was the main spokesperson for the nation. But later on, a younger, more charismatic, more lively spokesperson and representative became that as he joined. And he became the face of it. When people think of the Nation of Islam even today, they don't think of Fard Muhammad because many don't know who Fard is, but they think of the students of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Farrakhan, who stayed loyal, and Malcolm X, who did not. So part of the reason why the Nation of Islam turned on Malcolm X was the same reason why we thought that the Nation of Domination would turn on Farouk. But that doesn't happen. At the night after WrestleMania, it is the Nation of Domination does turn on somebody, but they turn on Farouk. So now Farouk is kicked out of his own group. He is no longer a member of the Nation of Domination. And he is on his own as a babyface for the first time in his WWF tenure. He hadn't been a babyface since he was in WCW. So you got a new leader in DX. Their old captain was kicked out in Triple H. You got a new leader in the Nation of Domination. Their old captain in Farouk. Their old captain in Shawn Michaels was kicked out, replaced by a new captain in Triple H. You got a new captain in Nation of Domination. Farouk is out. The Rock is in. This sets those two groups on a collision course with one another, as Triple H is gunning for the Intercontinental Championship, and The Rock is establishing himself. DX and the Nation of Domination, as we will see later in the year, will be looking towards each other. So, okay. We're here, WWF Unforgiven. Triple H for now is still gunning for the Intercontinental, the European Championship with Owen Hart. So he's basically still in the mid card. And they're still doing this storyline of Jim Cornette with the NWA. We talked about it in the '97 video that Jim Cornette uh, had these he was upset about how WCW depicted the retirement of Arn Anderson. Obviously, he's worked closely with Arn Anderson over the years. Now, the NWO, Fall Brawl, in the lead up to Fall Brawl '97, made fun of his retirement, made fun of the whole ceremony of Kurt Hennig, who turned out to be a turncoat anyway, getting the spot of Arn Anderson, which led to the War Games match where Hennig slammed the door in Rick's face, turning NWO anyway. He kind of didn't like that, and he made an editorial on the WWF's internet show, Bite This, and Vince loved it and said, put it on TV. After that, he started cutting ass on ECW. He started cutting ass on WCW, and a little bit of intertwining it with some of the storylines, especially those between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels going on within the WWF. And he even got at Phil Mushnick, the head of the New York Post, who was pretty much anti-wrestling and tried to use Brian Pillman's death in the latter part of '97 as a catalyst for that. But Vince Russo, who had now taken over full writing responsibilities, wanted to use this as a storyline. So the idea was they'll bring in Tommy Young, the classic NWA referee, and NWA wrestlers. Barry Windham was already there as the Stalker, and the new Blackjacks. He was teaming with Bradshaw, and they would bring back the they bring back the Rock and Roll Express, and they bring back the true NWA champion / UFC champion at that time, Dan Severn. And they would all be managed by Jim Cornette. Well, all right, works out. And of course, Jeff Jarrett, who had just come back in late '97, he would be the NWA North American champion. He would have the secondary title. And it didn't go over well. He beat Barry Windham. I talked about it in the '98 video. We talked about it a little bit. He beat Barry Windham. With the help of Jim Cornette, but Jeff Jarrett went out there strutting. Stone Cold Steve Austin was behind him, stunned him, made him look like a complete fool. And Jeff Jarrett had a lot of steam going into this if they didn't do the whole NWA thing. If they did the NWA thing. Jim Cornette is managing a heel version of the Rock and Roll Express. It doesn't work. They win the NWA Tag Team Championships. It doesn't work. He turns on the heel version of the Rock and Roll, brings back a new version of the Midnight Express, Bodacious Bart and Bombastic Bob Holly embark on. So Bob Holly embark on for this part of 1998. This is what they're doing. And we talked about it. They were in the Battle Royal where LOD 2000 came back with Sonny as their manager. They were the finals of the Battle Royal. So in 1988, the Road Warriors were teaming with the Midnight Express. In 1998, they're fighting the Midnight Express. But anyway, on this card here, fully loaded, Unforgiven, the Rock and Roll Express will take on the Midnight Express for the NWA Tag Team Championships. The Nation of Domination will take on Farouk and Ken Shamrock. Kane will have a rematch with his brother, The Undertaker. Now, the match at WrestleMania 14, a tremendous match, a culmination of their feud. Probably the toughest WrestleMania match The Undertaker had to date up to this point. But a stipulation is thrown in, an Inferno match, first of its kind, at least in the WWF. They've done this in Puerto Rico. The original Sheik, I think, wrestled Carlos Colon in an Inferno match, and of course, they've done this in Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling in Japan. But for the WWF, that doesn't really have gimmick matches. Like I said, ladder matches, falls count anywhere matches, these types of matches were rare when it came to the World Wrestling Federation. So an Inferno match, but it fit with Kane's character. Anyway, a unique concept. They would go on to have, but Undertaker still wins. And then we get to the main event. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Dude Love. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeats Dude Love and retains the WWF Championship. Moving on. Uh, Dude Love's failure to defeat Stone Cold Steve Austin has Vince McMahon thinking, maybe if I stack the deck against Austin, I make myself the referee, I make Pat Patterson the timekeeper, I make Gerald Briscoe the ring announcer, and I have my crew and all the stooges. He doesn't have the corporation at this point. All the stooges out to take out Stone Cold Steve Austin. Maybe it will work. So he sets the rematch for Over the Edge. In 1998. What else is going on? Vader. Vader came into the WWF in 1996 at the Royal Rumble. A lot of fanfare. He'd done a lot of things in 1995. Yeah, I mean, in the 1990s in WCW. Yeah, 1995 wasn't his greatest year. It was pretty much a shitty year. But, because he lost a lot of matches to Hulk Hogan. But people remember his feuds with Ric Flair, his feud with Sting, his feud with Cactus Jack. People remember that. So Vader now, and he had a failed run as a babyface where he and the Patriot were tag team partners in late '97 in WWF. So Kane's on a tear. You know, he's lost 2 matches to the Undertaker, but everybody else he's beat. You know, there was so Vader decides to put up his mask against Kane's mask. Now, we've all seen Vader without his mask, so the match really made no sense. But anyway, after he failed to win, he goes, I'm a piece of shit, a fat piece of shit. They're sending him to that weight loss clinic in North Carolina to try to slim down a little bit. Vader had lost his touch, you know. Well, anyway, Kane beats him, makes quick work of him. And now, the Nation of Domination. Now just called the Nation. The Rock is taking over. It's just called the Nation. The racial undertones of the gimmick have been pulled back. So probably like it was in the beginning, you know, when there was Savio Vega, when there was Crush, when there was all these other PG-13, all these other non-black wrestlers. The race of the wrestler has been de-emphasized. It's no longer a black militant group. And Owen Hart notices that his enemies are the enemies of the nation, including DX. So he joins the nation. So Owen Hart now is a member of the nation. And over the edge, he teams with D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry. D'Lo Brown and the Godfather to take on the members of DX. And they defeat DX. So once again, like I'm saying, going into the main event, the deck is stacked against Stone Cold Steve Austin. You got Vince McMahon as a special referee, The Undertaker as a special enforcer, Pat Patterson as a special ring announcer, and Gerald Briscoe as a special timekeeper. All these McMahon allies, The Undertaker is being forced to be a McMahon ally. All these to get a title shot at SummerSlam. All these McMahon acolytes, stacking the deck against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Austin still wins. He overcomes the odds with no help. The Raw after that pay-per-view, Vince McMahon fires Dude Love. He says to Dude Love, "You haven't been able to get the job done. You're pathetic. You're a fat piece of garbage." He yells at Dude Love. He says, "You're a collection of adipose tissue." So Dude Love is officially gone, and he's off the mission of trying to take the belt away from Stone Cold Steve Austin. What happens next? He reemerges in a suit and tie and his old Mankind, dirty suit and tie and his old Mankind attire. Mankind. Mankind is back. And it will be Mankind in the future that will battle for the WWF Championship, trying to take it off Stone Cold Steve Austin on behalf of Mr. McMahon. But first, Mankind has some unfinished business with an old nemesis from 2 years ago, and that is The Undertaker. The Undertaker now has been battling his brother Kane for like 3 or 4 months. And just like before, Uncle Paul comes to recruit Mankind. And all of a sudden now, Mankind and Kane are a formidable tag team, even winning the WWF Tag Team Championships. But King of the Ring is set. It's a double main event. Kane versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a first blood match, and Mankind and The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match at the King of the Ring. We also know that the King of the Ring, besides being this, is a tournament to see who possibly will go on to face the champion at SummerSlam. Well, the winner of the 1998 King of the Ring was Ken Shamrock. What an amazing year Ken Shamrock had. wasn't even a wrestler. At WrestleMania 13, when he refereed the Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin match, and now he's winning King of the Ring, a promising career. Bret Hart once did it in '93, and it helped him propel him back to the spotlight. Maybe that will do it for King China. But as we'll see in 1999, it didn't do it for the guy who won it in 1999, thanks to The Rock. But anyway, Mankind now is back to himself, wearing a dirty business shirt. Now he surmises there's only been one other Hell in a Cell match in history at this point, and that was Bad Blood '97 between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Now he knows that he's not once again trying to fight, trying to fit in to the footsteps of Shawn Michaels, knowing that he can't. You know what I mean? So knowing he can't do the moves that Shawn Michaels can do, that he's not the athlete that Shawn Michaels is, what he does do is he says, I'll take 2-3 big bumps in the ring, and that'll be it. So he does that. And the bumps he takes, oh my God, people still talk about it to this day. He and Undertaker go to the top of the Hell in a Cell. Undertaker throws him off the top, and then boom. And then what do you hear Jim Ross say? Good God, he's broken in half. And he comes back, you get him on the gurney, he walks back. I didn't see it live while it happened because I was in camp at that time. This was July of '98. You know what I mean? But I watched it later. Undertaker's like, Jim Ross like, he can't compete. He gets off the gurney, walks back, competes some more, puts thumbtacks in the ring, and Undertaker chokeslams him on thumbtacks. You know, you see his teeth, his shattered teeth coming out through his nose, and he's smiling. And then Jim Ross is like, look at that sick, sadistic bastard smiling. Finally, in a breach of kayfabe, his former tag team partner, who he turned on, Terry Funk, comes out and convinces him to actually leave the ring and lose the match. But man, nobody will forever forget King of the Ring 1998, Undertaker versus Mankind. I mean, people talk about Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan, right? People talk about when in '85 when Jimmy Snuka had the coconut slammed over his head, the big moments that we remember as wrestling fans. But King of the Ring 1998, for my generation, I wasn't there for Snuka and Piper with the coconut or Hogan and Andre. I wasn't even watching this, but I'm saying they play this over and over in the highlight reel, and this was Mankind's proudest moment. Some would say his proudest moment will come next year on Raw when he would win the WWF Championship against The Rock. We'll get to that and the controversy that caused with WCW. But for right now, Mankind is out of it. And the first blood match between Kane and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Keep in mind, Stone Cold Steve Austin had been an unstoppable force since the time he won the WWF Championship in March. Nobody had been able to beat him. They threw Mankind at him. They threw special stipulations at him. They threw everything at him. They even threw The Undertaker as a special enforcer at his ass. And still, nothing could beat him. Finally, they throw Kane at him. A first blood match. Well, he loses. Kane is your new WWF champion. Now, Kane, very impressive. The WWF championship, and he's only been in the company since last October, right? And he loses it the next night to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin wins it for the second time. So now Vince is back to square one. He was celebrating that Austin is no longer the champion, but now he has to do it over again and find something else. So he stacks the deck. Despite them fighting half of the year in Inferno matches, Undertaker and Kane are starting to get along now. Undertaker has his shot at Stone Cold Steve Austin in Madison Square Garden at SummerSlam that year. And people are wondering, well, since Kane and Undertaker are becoming friendly again, maybe Kane will side with his brother, The Undertaker, and help The Undertaker defeat Stone Cold Steve Austin. That doesn't happen. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker, who previously were tag team champions going into SummerSlam. They go into SummerSlam. They have a shitty match. Both guys will tell you now that SummerSlam 1998 for them was a real shitty match. It wasn't great at all. But compared to their Cold Day in Hell match that In Your House they had in '97 when Austin was still a heel, and later matches that they had, because they had a match on Raw we'll talk about in 1999 where Austin wins the WWF Championship again. That was unique, a classic, like the highest rated Raw of all time. So Austin retains. Now Vince has the idea a triple threat match: Kane, Undertaker, and Austin at Breakdown, the September pay-per-view. What happens at this one? Both guys pin Stone Cold Steve Austin. So Vince doesn't care. He grabs the belt. He hightails it out of here. The belt is his now. And of course, indecisively, they have to put the belt up in a tournament at Survivor Series. Tournament Deadly Games. The first time since WrestleMania 4 that the title had been, since 10 years before at WrestleMania 4, that the title had been held up in a tournament. What else is going on? At SummerSlam, this is when it happens. There is a ladder match scheduled between the Nation and DX. Now, taking inspiration from what the NWO did to the Four Horsemen, the Nation of Domination, and DX decides to parody the Nation of Domination. They have Triple H as The Rock. They have Road Dogg as D-Lo. They have Billy Gunn as the Godfather. But the one that is objectable, because Mark Henry had just come back and joined the Nation of Domination. He was in WWE, had a feud kind of with Vader, but then like he was green, he was untrained, so they brought him back. They trained him a little more, and then they brought him back as a member of the Nation of Domination. But the one that troubles people is the blackface. X-Pac as Mizark in blackface. Troubled them so much that in 2021, when WWE got put on Peacock, they took this off. Because once again, just like with the Horsemen in the NWO example, the Nation never got their comeuppance. They never actually beat the shit out of DX. They just let DX do it. Things like this will be done years later, following year with the corporation, and in 2006 with the McMahons, Vince and Shane, but never as offensive as this. Not taking into account blackface was still a big thing even in 1998. We knew that it was a taboo even then. We're not talking about 1925 with Al Jolson and the jazz singer here, right, singing Mammy. Right? We know this is 1998. We know this is wrong. He claims he got Mark Henry's permission, but I don't know. I doubt it, because Mark Henry got pissed when Michael Hayes used the N-words. Nonetheless, the ladder match, the second ladder match in SummerSlam history, was a great match. I talked about this match before. I wanted to be there at Madison Square Garden. I wasn't, but I watched it on pay-per-view, and all of a sudden, as the Intercontinental title match was going on, the sound went off. And rather than bugging my grandmother, like, what's wrong with the sound? I just provided my own commentary. So I actually never heard the commentary on this pay-per-view, this match between The Rock and Triple H. But I heard it was a great match. Jeff Jarrett got his head shaved in the match with X-Pac. Jeff Jarrett no longer a member of the NWA contingency, now with Tennessee Lee, a.k.a. Colonel Rob Parker, in the WWF as his manager. All that bitching and complaining you did about the Double J gimmick, when it pays money, it pays money. Goldust / Dustin Rhodes would be the exact same thing later on with Goldust. Southern Justice joins his team, formerly the Godwins. They got revamped. So where we are now, the WWF Championship is held up for grabs in a tournament. And there are rumors that a major WCW star will be in this tournament. And people are like, who could it be? Could it be Goldberg? Because Goldberg was on WCW at the time, setting the world on fire. Just won the WCW Championship from Hulk Hogan in July. So people were wondering it could be him, it could be anybody that was a free agent. Turns out it's Dwayne Gill. Now, what else is happening? Big Boss Man has returned to the WWF after being gone since 1993. He is now the bodyguard of Vince McMahon, because after failing to capture the WWF Championship from Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince McMahon mouthed off to Kane and The Undertaker, and Kane and The Undertaker were not having it. They put Vince in a wheelchair, so he needs a bodyguard. And who does he call on? The Big Boss Man, a heel Big Boss Man, who hits Stone Cold from behind. And we find out that at the Survivor Series, they'll be taking each other on those two. With Shane McMahon, who is now an announcer in Sunday Night Heat, Shane McMahon will be the referee for that match. So we're thinking, okay, Shane's a babyface, he's cool or whatever, right? And he's counting at 2 as Stone Cold Steve Austin is about to advance and pin Big Bubba Rogers, aka the Big Boss Man, and he gives him the middle finger. Austin is disqualified, and Big Bubba Rogers moves up. But what I want to talk about was the finals. After the ladder match at SummerSlam, The Rock had begun to be getting cheered. People would repeat after The Rock. People loved The Rock's catchphrases and all of that. So they saw him as kind of a babyface, even though he still had some initial ties to members of the nation like Mark Henry and D'Lo or whatever. The crowd started to see him as a babyface. He was never officially kicked out of the nation. That's just how it was, right? So they see him as an odds-on favorite, and they see him as a babyface. Well, that's what it gets down to. It gets down to the finals. Mankind, who was the corporate champion, who was the guy that Vince assumably chose. Shane is now a heel. Ken Shamrock is now in the fold. Big Boss Man is now in the fold. What's going to happen? People are wondering. Well, The Rock has Mankind in a sharpshooter. And what does Vince do? Ring the fucking bell. Ring the fucking bell. And as Mankind loses, he's disappointed. He saw Vince McMahon as a father figure when Vince gave the Hardcore Championship earlier in the year. And Vince says, get the fuck out of my face. And The Rock attacks him from behind. Rock bottoms him. So The Rock is once again a heel. this time as a member of Vince McMahon's corporation. This swerve, this first the swerve of Shane McMahon, then the swerve of The Rock, because we all thought, oh well, The Rock's turning babyface. Of course, Vince is pulling for Mankind to win the match, and this all has to do with Vince Russo. This was his magnum opus, guys. This was the best work he ever did. When people talk about Vince Russo was such a brilliant writer, Vince Russo was the man. Vince Russo was the guy who saved the WWF from going under business in 1998. This is what they're talking about. Survivor Series Deadly Games was a brilliant, brilliant plan, brilliantly executed, lots of twists and turns, lots of intrigue. Who saw The Rock being the ally to Vince McMahon? Nobody. So The Rock, formerly the People's Champion, now he's the corporate champion, and the corporation has its leader. So going into 1999, it's going to be a battle between the corporation and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and other wrestlers like Mankind and DX. But as far as the tournament itself, Survivor Series 1998, I don't care if you love Russo, you hate Russo, you disagree with something else that Russo did in 1998. That was the Brawl for All. According to what he's saying, Russo was sitting behind his desk, sitting backstage in WWF headquarters at that time, saying to himself, how can I entertain myself? That Bradshaw, who was a part of the New Blackjacks at that time, but of course, like I said, they were moving Barry Windham onto something else, so they had to move Bradshaw to something else. Bradshaw talking hella shit, like if wrestling was real, I'd beat you all up. So, in the spirit of the Tough Man contest, in the spirit of the UFC, which was being banned all over the country at this time, the late 90s, Vince Russo decides to create the Brawl for All. Tough guys, real wrestlers, real boxers, real fighters, guys like Dr. Death Steve Williams, who was just coming into the company, guys like Savio Vega, guys like Justin Bradshaw, guys like Dan Severn, who's already there as part of the NWA. Basically, a bunch of guys who don't really have gimmicks and don't really have major storylines anymore necessarily sign up for this. And the Godwins, Dennis Knight, Mark Canterbury, they sign up for this. A bunch of guys. And Bart Gunn, who is Bodacious Bart, one half of the Midnight Express, formerly the Smoking Guns, signs up for this. Now, nobody thinks Bart's going to win. They think he's a demure young man, really petite. He's not going to win. And his first match is against his tag team partner, Bombastic Bob. So that's the end of the New Midnight Express, Jim Cornette said, and rightfully so. He knocks him out. Matter of fact, Bart Gunn knocks everyone out. All of Bart Gunn's wins are knockouts. And people don't like this. When it was going on, people chanted, we want wrestling, we want wrestling. But Vince and other Vince persist. Vince McMahon comes from a boxing pedigree. He always wanted to promote boxing. But these aren't boxers. These are wrestlers on their off time. Anyway, Dr. Death Steve Williams, the guy that everybody, especially Jim Ross, said was going to win, old Mid-South alumni, so of course Jim Ross would support him, doesn't. Not only doesn't he, but he gets injured. So he's out of it. But Bart Gunn wins. So now, going into 1999, we have the brilliant idea to put Bart Gunn, the winner of the Brawl for All, the legitimate winner of the Brawl for All, against Butterbean. in a real boxing match. We'll see how that goes when we get to WrestleMania 15. But anyway, guys, that's 1998, the latter half of 1998 for you guys. Vince McMahon is still hot on the trail of Stone Cold Steve Austin, using all he has. And what about The Undertaker and Kane? Will they become a team? Will they? Or maybe The Undertaker will have a change of heart and form the Ministry of Darkness, proving that the late Kevin Sullivan wasn't the only wrestler that was tapped into the occult. The Undertaker, for a brief period in 1999. We'll tap into that. But we'll get there, man. We'll get to the sacrifice of Stephanie McMahon, the apparent babyface turn of Vince McMahon, the babyface turn eventually of The Rock after his failure to keep the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 15 against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the empty arena match, The Rock and Mankind at Super Bowl that year. Lots of ground to cover, and Barry Blaustein's documentary. I said when we get to 1999, we'll talk about it. We will. Peace. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. I love you guys.